Hello people out there and welcome back to the Her Game 2 podcast. I am your host and moron with a microphone, Mark Watson, and I'm joined by Emily Drakeley and Helena Banks.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, how you doing girls? How are you, Emily? We'll come to you first. The Drake, how's things?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's been a bit of a turbulent day for me, but yeah, all in all, I'm all right. Yeah, how are you?
Oh, living the dream. I'm here with you two lovely people, so what more can I ask for? Helena, how are you doing tonight?
All good, all good. It's been such a busy couple of weeks for us, I think. It's nice to finally stop and just relax.
You know what? We are all Blues fans. As Blues fans, I know we've had the Her Game 2 birthday events the other day. We had the player awards before that. You girls didn't you go to Wembley, the FA Cup final, Emily?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we went on Sunday, and Blues kindly donated those tickets to us as part of Her Game 2. So yeah, we were really grateful for that opportunity, and we went and we were all a bit hungover. But it was a really good time. We really enjoyed ourselves, and the football was really good as well. So that makes everything even better.
You might want to point out that was the day after the birthday thing. You're not just like raving alcoholics. You were hungover from the birthday events. So Helena, you got given these by Blues. I mean, I'm a Blues fan. I assume. What, you just forgot my address, you lost my number, my invite got lost somewhere?
Well, after Saturday, we didn't think that you would be up and ready to leave at 11:30. So I was thinking a bit touch and go.
I think you're right. I haven't danced that for ages. No, I genuinely emailed the band after and said thanks for making a 35-year-old man relive his youth. I loved it. I had a brilliant time at the birthday. But we're here to talk about you two, not the Blues or the FA Cup final in particular. Her Game 2, Emily, you are an ambassador, I believe, and Helena an advocate. My first question has to be, as someone who isn't completely knowledgeable about the family tree of Her Game 2, what is the difference between an ambassador and an advocate, Emily?
I think the main difference is the ambassador really is the first person that's part of the campaign for the club, and they're almost the key speaker. So they're the person that will directly converse with the club, and any issues will eventually be relayed to the ambassador and then to the club. But an advocate is more someone that of a supporting role to the ambassador. So if there's any trouble at the ground, or they hear of anything, or they have any ideas, then it's more like a forum to discuss together. And then the ambassador normally takes it to the club. But I like to think me and Helena, we do everything almost as a team. So although I'm the ambassador and she's the advocate, we do have very similar roles, really. I like to think we've shaped it quite well, and we're making quite quick progress together.
So does it basically mean that when you get together and discuss these things, it's Helena that brings the biscuits and puts the kettle on?
We normally go to have a Chinese tea instead. So and buy some notepads. So yeah, we do things a bit differently.
So Emily, you've been on board how long now?
I was one of
from the
12
start. You're one of the OG,
members.
the OG 12, aren't you?
I am, yeah, one of the OG 12. So Kaz approached me at the same time she approached all the girls, asking if I wanted to be involved. And obviously it's something that I've experienced my whole life. Obviously I don't come from Birmingham, as everyone can tell by my accent. I come from deep Cotswolds, as my dad always likes to take the mick out of me for saying. And we didn't have anything like that. And I faced a lot of adversity growing up to do with football. And as soon as she asked me, I said, yeah, let's do it. I was a bit worried to begin with, to be honest, because obviously you are about people's reactions. But the more it went on, the more I got confident with it. And I'm really pleased with what we've achieved so far.
What did your sign say that you held up? Can you remember?
Oh, my goodness. It's something, it's a man's game. You can't comment, it's a man's game, I think it said.
Was that what it was?
Yeah. So,
and Helena, how long have you been an advocate now?
Oh, I've got to think now. I think it was February time. I'm looking at Emily
quite
now,
recent
hoping
then.
that she'll know.
It was end of March. It was just after the announcement of Blues. I think about end of March.
Yeah, it was just after kind of we had that game at the Blues where it was all announced. That's sort of how I got into it with Emily.
So how did you get involved? Did you know Emily prior to this?
No,
You just
we were
accosted
talking
her.
about this earlier, actually, how I did get involved. So no, I didn't know her before. I'd kind of just seen her on social media. I'd seen that she's got involved with it, and I was really happy that someone from the Blues was doing it. But then I went to the announcement game and was so excited. Had my little Her Game Too hat, really, really excited, and it was just very deflating. I think it was very
Okay.
underwhelming, the
Okay.
experience. So I kind of put a tweet out the next day and said something along the lines of, I was really disappointed about last night. That you wouldn't have even known that it was that game. And then Emily got into contact with me, and then from there, I think it's just kind of gone strength to strength, really.
Okay, so let's pick that apart. What was disappointing about it, Helena? What didn't stand out to you as the case, maybe?
I think it was just that it was very. So we got there early for whatever reason that game, and we saw players wearing their shirts, and I think they had their shirts on for probably about 5-10 minutes. The shirts came off, and then I think that was it. There wasn't really anything at half time. There wasn't anything around the ground. There wasn't any kind of mention of it further than that. And I thought to myself, if I would have just got here at my normal roll in 5 minutes before the game, I don't think I would have even noticed that that was going on.
Funny you mention that. I was at that same game. I was in the corporate section, just on a jolly, basically a corporate jolly. I was part of Her Game 2 at that time and didn't realise that was the Her Game 2 night. I only realised when I opened the programme that was on the table in front of us, and there it was, the poster for it. I don't know what your feelings were on the night, Em, but it seemed like there wasn't much effort put in.
I think it wasn't really for the want of trying. I think I do have to really take a lot of sympathy and thanks from the club. I think they're spread quite thinly, but I do have to say at the time I was actually gutted. For me, the night was good because I got to go around to speak to all the corporate boxes and explain about the campaign. But for me, I was targeting the wrong audience. It should have been the young girls, the women in the stands. And although I was really pleased that they put our campaign on the big board, I was hoping for a bit more social media presence. However, I do think maybe going forward, I think we didn't rush it. I did try. I did try really hard.
Yeah. No one's disputing that.
Yeah, I think it was a bit complicated, and obviously the club have a lot to do. So I think we've discussed this with the club, and we raised our concerns, and they understand where we came from with that as well, which was really good. They were really receptive of that. So going forward, we're definitely going to be doing another day, but we're going to be doing months and months of planning beforehand, Helena and I, and hopefully the club will get a bit more on board next time. But it was disappointing, but it's food for thought and see where we can go next.
I'll tell you what, the club corporate staff are great. They don't always get things right, but they acknowledge where they haven't got things right, and it fills me with joy that they acknowledge that Her Game 2 night didn't go perfectly. But like you say, I don't think there's any sort of lack of care from the Blues. I think there's just a lot of plates in the air at the moment at our football club regarding ownership and stuff we won't go into because this isn't a Blues podcast. But you kind of, if you knew how our club was being run currently, you'd understand why things may have got left by the wayside. But you're going to plan something else. Have you got any specific game in mind? Is it going to be a women's game or a men's seniors, you know?
We've got a lot planned. I think we're definitely going to speak. We've got something in the pipeline, which I'll let Helena talk about for the women's side. But for the men's, we're looking towards the end of January to be the dedicated Her Game 2 fixture. But yeah, Helena, I'll let you explain about the women's.
Well, there you go, Helena.
Here we go. So Emily was contacted by obviously Darren Carter, who spent so much time talking to us at the Players Awards, which was just amazing.
He was just
he could not have been nicer, and he was talking to us about our personal experiences, and he'd said that he'd fed back to the girls about Her Game 2 and the feedback was amazing, and he's invited us to spend the day at the training ground with the women's team and with him, like himself, kind of speaking to the women about it, getting to know them, getting their perspectives on the whole campaign, which is just unbelievable. Real good support from them.
Oh, awesome. When are you doing that, do you know? I suppose you can't know until the fixture's released.
Yeah, we're just trying to, obviously with our jobs and stuff, we're just trying to put a date in place, but we're hoping it won't be too long because it is something we're really excited about doing, obviously on a personal level as well.
Yeah, definitely.
As Home too.
Definitely. So you say you spoke to Darren Carter about your experiences. What sort of experiences are we talking about, Helena? Anything that sort of sticks out in your mind that brought you to this campaign?
I think it's just been a big collation of things over the years. I don't think I've listened to so many different people, and I was always very girly as a child. I was completely the opposite. I wasn't a tomboy. I was very girly when I was younger. And I got into football with my dad. I was probably about 10, started going to the booths, and nobody expected it. So it was very much like, what do you mean you like football? What you really? Just because I was quite a girl's girl. And it was just always like, again, it's that whole invalidation of your opinion throughout, from when I was younger, even to now. When you try and have a conversation with somebody, they're just, they're not interested in what you have to say. So I used to work at my local pub, and majority of people knew that I was a season ticket holder, knew that I'd go to the Blues, and we'd have customers come up to the bar and talk to, if I was with 5 other members of staff and 2 of them were a male, they would talk to them for hours about the football. They'd chat and chat. And I remember one vividly turning around saying, oh, Helena goes, she goes every week. And they was like, oh, right, okay. And then just walked off.
Yeah.
And I was kind of stood there thinking, I don't understand why you then can't have that conversation with me.
I'll tell you, it's interesting when you tell that story that you start off by saying, I wasn't a tomboy, I was a girly girl.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's even in your own mind, it's natural that you're a girl, therefore you shouldn't like football.
Yeah.
Like it's almost subconscious that's how you chose to frame that story. It's interesting, and it's sad, really. Like you can be a girly girl and like football, as you've proven. So how about you, the Drake? Anything in particular that made you think this movement is needed?
Yeah, I think it's been sort of apparent for me throughout my whole life of liking football, really. I've always liked football. I didn't when I was really little, but my mum sent me a photo yesterday of me in an England shirt in 2004, which sort of sparked a few memories that I obviously couldn't remember. First time I liked football was 2006. I remember vividly. And then I didn't really get involved with it much more after that. And then when I got to 13, it was the World Cup always sort of captured me. And I got to 13, and it was the 2010 World Cup, so you can work out my age by now. And I was just absolutely hooked. I remember going to school and talking about football, and none of my mates liked football. There was only 2 other girls in my whole school that really liked football. And luckily they were in my year, so I could speak to them a bit about it. But one that was a Spurs fan, one was a Chelsea fan. And I sort of was a bit of a floater. I didn't really have a team. I didn't really get taken anywhere. I got a bit older, and my dad wouldn't really take me to football games because he supports Bristol City, and at the time it was a bit more of a hostile environment. He managed to get tickets for his work to the corporate part of Bristol City, where I went twice. I loved it, but I did feel like I didn't belong. And then I wanted to play football for my school, and we had a trip to go to Valencia.
Oh wow!
And it was so cool. Me and my mate were so excited, and we applied, and they turned us down because we were girls.
No way. So
yeah.
Backtrack on that. It was a football trip, was it?
Yeah. So basically, what it was is you could apply to go there. You stay in the hotel right by the Valencia FC training ground. You could train at the training ground. You'd go to a Valencia fixture. You'd play in matches. And you'd get to be trained by Valencia's coaches.
No way.
Yeah, and it was such a cool idea. And me and my mate, we absolutely jumped on it because we were so mad on football. And then we had a response back from Valencia and my school saying you can't go because we can't take girls with us.
From Valencia as well?
Yeah, from both both parties. So I remember quite vividly, I was so upset, and my dad was not having any of it. So he wrote a letter to my head teacher and to Valencia, to basically argue that they were sexist, if they didn't let us go, and our gender shouldn't stop us from being able to play. Even if they couldn't field a team for us out there, we could still have all the other experiences. Their argument was that the girls can't play out there, but we could have had all the other experiences. And they said yes.
No way. So you went?
Oh, I love it.
So I went, and I trained. I can't play football for anything, but I love it. So my hand-eye coordination is not very good. I can't run on sports, but I didn't care.
Are you sure they weren't just saying you can't go because you're crap?
maybe. But my mate Jade, she wasn't bad, so maybe it was just me. But no, so we went, and I remember speaking to the coach in Spanish, and none of the other people would really sort of understanding what he was saying, so I would translate for them. And
no way,
it was the best experience of my life. We went to the Mestalla. It's like that, the stadium. It's so steep. I thought I was going to fall down. And honestly, it was 10 years ago now, but I treasure those memories so much. And that really sort of kick-started my love of wanting to be in football and changing football for the better. And then my life sort of carried on, and I had other things go on like that. And then I went to university and studied football business and media. And they were really good, and they were really open with the fact that I was a girl. But it showed that there were limited numbers of girls in the sport, because there was only 5 girls in my class throughout the whole time I was at uni. And there were other girls in other classes, but in my business and media class, there's only 5 of us. Going forward, applying for jobs since leaving university with my degree, I haven't been madly successful. Whether that's because I'm a girl or not, I don't know. But yeah, that was the main core memory that sticks with me, really.
I mean, you managed to find your way onto the Her Game 2 podcast, so
oh yeah,
I'd say you've been slightly successful. Do you think if they hadn't allowed you to go, that would potentially have been the end of your love affair with football?
I think it would have really tarnished it. I think it would have made me feel like I was worthless, because I remember getting the letter back, actually, and being told by my PE teacher and going home that night, and I was absolutely crushed. It was like a massive dream of mine and a massive ambition to say that I could have done that. And I just couldn't comprehend why boys could get these opportunities and girls couldn't. And to be fair to my school, they were really good after that. I'd gone and trained at Tottenham when I was the only girl a year before. And then since that, I trained at West Brom twice. So it wasn't like my school were bad. They were actually really supportive going forward. But yeah, I just, it sort of brings it all back, like thinking about it. Just if I hadn't been able to go, I think I wouldn't have wanted to go to uni and study football business and media if it wasn't for my dad, really. I wouldn't have wanted to carry on, because I think it's really important that men and women back the movement and back women in sport, because if it wasn't like my dad, I wouldn't be here now. And my dad's a great man, but without that and all my other family backing me, not everyone has that. So if someone had gone through the experience like I had, and they had been turned down for going on that trip, and they didn't have someone like my dad behind them, then we're going to lose so many women in sport very quickly because of the lack of backing. So I think it would have put me off, if I'm completely honest, not of going to football and loving the game, but of pursuing a on the side career, so to speak. That it would have.
Certainly, I imagine it'd stop you being so vocal in your support if you feel like you're just going to be shot down. I mean, that's how I would feel anyway. It's interesting that you mentioned school. I've spoke about schools on these podcasts, every one now. It seems to be school is the main gatekeeping blockade to football. Helena, I think you're the youngest of the three of us. You're only slightly younger than me. Did you have a girls' football team at your school?
No, nothing like that.
No.
I think I was telling Emily the other day, so I vividly remember we had to do a PE, like as well as doing practical, we had to do like a written thing as part of getting a GCSE. I didn't choose it as an option, but we were all forced to do it. And we were doing like a booklet about football. And my PE teacher, who was a woman, put the question out there, can anybody explain the offside rule? So I put my hand up and she went, no, Helena, put your hand down. You're a girl. You don't know what that is. Put your hand down. Let someone else choose. Yeah. And I remember going home to my dad and being like, what? Like, but at the time when it happens, you think, oh, that's a bit, you know. But then when you look back on it as an adult and being aware of so many others with that experience, you do think, wow, like, how is that allowed to happen? How is a young girl allowed to feel like that? And that comment be made.
That's from a teacher as well. Like, I mean,
yeah.
As someone who works in education yourself, that's got to be pretty.
Oh, I would never dream of doing anything like that.
That's
like, because you just crush a child there instantly.
Yeah.
Like, you just make them feel like completely strange, completely abnormal for even knowing that, because that's not what girls are supposed to know. That's not what girls are supposed to do. Like, you're just reinforcing that stereotype completely.
Bloody hell, and
it's not.
That's shocking from a teacher. I mean, I've tried explaining the offside rule. It's quite hard to explain as well. It's odd that that's always used as the example when I'm not convinced that I can explain it all that easily either.
I know. I think there's quite a few men out there that probably couldn't explain the offside rule. So I don't know why that's always the point that is brought up.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Well, it's low hanging fruit, isn't it? And it brings us on to sort of you read it online a lot, but it seems like from speaking to the girls from her game to yourselves, Kaz, etc. One of the main things you seem to get is quizzed. Quizzed? That's not a word. I keep making words up on these podcasts. That is definitely not a word. Quizzed was probably the word I was looking for. Once you say you like football, Kaz, I think it was Eve, was told to name all the stands at Bristol City, and Kaz was told to name the England squad. And you just think, you wouldn't ask that of a bloke, but you ask it of girls, and do you know the offside rule? It just seems... I mean, how do you answer people like that, Emily?
I think it's really hard, but I think going forward, it's really an education piece. You're always going to get people that are negative, and I've experienced it. People that don't think it's an issue, people that question your knowledge. But I think it's just, for me now, I've sort of taken the standpoint of, okay, if you don't believe me, then that's your problem, because I can tell you so much about Birmingham City that your ears would bleed. So,
and they have in the past. Shutting you up is the hard bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Once I start talking, I don't stop, and that is a problem of mine. But
God, you're boring.
It is what it is. I know. Tell me about it. But you can get men that like football that also feel a bit intimidated when they're asked questions. They're not asked questions as much, but they are asked questions like that as well. But they don't get the intimidation factor as much as women do. It's very much a case of men are asking that because they want to make you feel intimidated. They want to make you feel like belittled, because why should you know that? What business is it of yours to know all these things about football? Well, actually in the 1920s, women were playing football. I know it got banned in the 60s for playing. I think it's 60s. Women weren't allowed to play on professional pitches anymore, but that was rescinded. Women are allowed to do this as well. Just because it's not as widely spoken about doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And just because women don't play football doesn't mean they actually don't like watching it. And just because they don't shout about it all the time doesn't mean they don't know what they're on about. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that people assume because you're a woman, you don't actually know what you're on about. Well, try me.
Yeah. Well, and I have. But behind the scenes info, Emily and I used to do a podcast together, and you've been on my podcast, Fat Lads, numerous times. And there's times where I've asked you a question, and 10 minutes later I'm looking at my watch going, she's going to finish this in a minute, because I've got and I've just sat there thinking, okay, I didn't realise we invited a Sky Sports pundit on, but here we go. And some of the stuff you come out with, I just think, I made notes on that game and I didn't realise that, and I was focused solely on that game, and Yeah, it's like you say, if anyone wants to dare try and quiz you girls, good luck.
With the quizzing, that's something that fills me with such dread. Even now, even though I've been going 10 years, even though I watch Birmingham City week in, week out, England, whatever it is, it fills me with absolute dread when I get asked a question like that, because I think if I say something stupid or controversial or whatever, the first response is going to be, oh, woman, she ain't got no idea what she's talking about. Like the other day, somebody asked, just normal general chat, asked Dec what his dream lineup would be for England. And then they were like, oh, Helena, what would you go with? And it was the anxiety that I felt, even though I could answer that question quite easily. I felt so worried. I was writing it down. I was stressing about it. Yeah. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. And that's all because I'm so worried that someone will go, what? That's so stupid. What are you talking about? That's just because you're a woman. See, women don't know anything. Because that will be the response. That will be straight away the comment that's made. Which obviously it's not okay at all.
That is so genuinely like heartbreaking to hear. The fact that a simple question would send you into some sort of anxiety spiral just because of fear of the backlash. I mean, the podcast I used to do with Drakeley, I'd get asked weekly, what's your lineup for this week? I ain't got a clue. No idea. My memory is shocking. When I do various podcasts and people say, remember that? Remember when he scored? And no, I don't. I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast this morning. I ain't got a clue. But the difference is, because I'm male, people just go, oh, your memory's crap. Whereas for you, it's because you got boobs.
Yeah, that's it. If we don't remember every single detail of every single thing that's ever happened, it's because we're women, not because we just got memories like a sieve. It's because we're a woman.
So do you feel like
it's really sad? There's
more pressure on you to be on top of your footballing game?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, because there's a ready-made excuse that people can use, a ready-made comeback that people will have. So it is, and sometimes I do sit there and I listen to other people's opinions and I think, how are you even getting away with that? How are you even getting away with either making something up or just talking absolute rubbish? And nobody is saying anything. Nobody's calling you out about it. No one's making a comment. That's just because you're a man and you're allowed to say that, and it's fine. But
I think for me, the worst part about having an opinion is I've stopped doing this now. Is posting it on social media.
Yeah.
I think I used to be quite vocal about my opinions of football and life, really, and mental health and things like that. And I've just completely stopped because the backlash that you get in general is horrific. So I've sort of come off a bit now, and I just really tweet about the campaign and positive stuff. But if I were to put my opinion about a player, whether I was young and I was a bit of an idiot, and I'd say something that was a bit controversial, and people didn't agree with it, things get very toxic very quickly and not in a constructive way. And you don't always see men. You never see a man get attacked on Twitter because they're a man. But as soon as a woman has an opinion online that they don't like, it's because you should get back into the kitchen. So that, for me, it's a bit of a tender one.
Yeah, I was going to say, blokes will get piled on for the wrong footballing opinion. But it very rarely comes down to their appearance and their gender. It seems like with females, it very quickly descends into sexism, essentially. Comments on looks, comments on, I know Kaz has had some horrific stuff about her body. I mean, how do you girls cope with like the sort of knowledge that if you step out of line, your body image will be attacked?
I don't think you do. I just think you just kind of put that to back of your mind. You just think, if that was to ever happen, I mean, I've not experienced that social media. I haven't really had a social media following probably until now, which has put me a bit more of an highlight on the things that I tweet now, and thinking, I don't want to put that out there just in case. But I don't know how I would feel doing that. I don't know if that would be me completely shut down, step away from it all, because I don't know if I would cope with it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I suppose with the social media, there's no escape, is there? You can't just walk out of that pub. You can't just walk down the street, and it's there. Would you say social media, you get more offensive stuff online than in person, Drake?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's only the last season I've stopped looking over my shoulder going to games.
No way.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the fan base now know me. Obviously, I'm quite new accent, you know, and yeah, I think to begin with, it is really hard going to football, being a girl, and then obviously you put your opinions online, and people don't like it, and people just don't agree with it, and then it gets nasty really quickly. And then as a woman, I don't feel safe walking the streets at the best of times. You know, I'm always ringing my mum or my partner or my dad when I'm walking somewhere on my own, because just in case something happens to me, I've got my Apple Watch, I've got my phone, I've got my AirPods, they're all tracking my location. But that's the price of being a woman in 2022. And then going to a football game and seeing some things that people write online about you, and then going there and seeing the people that wrote it, and you know, the emotions that you feel, it makes me feel sick. Like really sick, and I had it really bad, and I haven't had anyone mention my appearance for a long time, and I didn't lose weight because of what other people said. I lost weight because of my cholesterol level, but I was always worried when I was bigger that people were going to mention my weight. Now I'm not as big, it's not so bad for me. I don't think people are going to pick on my weight as much, and typical, I bet someone's going to pick on my weight now after I've said this on the podcast. Next time I put something on Twitter people don't like, but I think it's really hard. Like, people will always pick out on social media your biggest insecurities without even knowing it. People will pick up on my teeth the most, and because I've got quite a big upper like mouth area. I've got like horse teeth. Yeah,
horse teeth.
I've got quite horsey teeth, and I've been called that my whole life. So when people say that on Twitter, that will really affect me. And I'll go into I haven't had this at Blues, but if I went into a stadium and someone had said that to me, I wouldn't open my mouth. That's what it's like.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah,
it's sad.
So do you think that's unique to women, or do you think men also have that worry of pylons and anxieties?
I know for a fact they do.
Yeah.
I know for a fact they do, yeah. I know people close to me that have come off social media altogether because of the anxiety it caused them, and how much their mental health has improved since coming off social media. I think it can be a really toxic place for both men and women. I think being a woman, I think there's just the added extra safety value of being a woman and being a bit vulnerable. But I would never say that it's a unique thing to women. No. I just think it's a different level or different type of feeling, because we have the added extra worries. Whereas if you're a man walking down the street, you're not as likely to get attacked. But on social media, this is a horrible phrase, but it's fair game to go at anyone, because a lot of people just hide behind profiles.
It's social media. It's everyone's looking for a slam dunk, aren't they? They're looking for that one comment that ends it, and that's the winner. And unfortunately, quite often that is the lowest hanging fruit. And with women, the sexism route is the easiest, I suppose. So the sexism on social media, Helena, do you think that is all genuine sexism, or do you think that is social media causing people to pick the most offensive thing they can? So some of these comments you get, these sexist comments, do you think these people are sexist in real life, or do you think they're trolls, or do you think it's a mix?
Do you know, this is something I was thinking about recently after, I know you mentioned it on your last podcast, but after the whole period pad gate with obviously the Blues fan.
I'll tell you what, go into that, explain that, because there will be people watching this that didn't watch.
That was just horrendous,
didn't watch
wasn't it? That was something we really pushed for, and we were so excited about, and we thought, we'll put this on social media. Obviously, it's not going to offend anyone. It's a period pad. Why would it? Of course it did. offend someone.
Just for context, you didn't just put a picture of a period pad onto social
No,
media.
oh no.
The Blues,
The whole
Birmingham
machine.
City, have put a tampon machine in the women's toilets.
And he just did not stop. And I think that's when it made me realise, is this actually an opinion of his? I mean, he could come out after this and say, yes, it is. Or is it just, like you say, picking the thing that he's getting all of this attention, he's getting all of these comments, and he's just picking and coming out with the most outrageous stuff that doesn't really make any sense.
Periods are woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example. But kind of saying that stuff, and then the more he's saying it, the more infuriating it is, the more people are reacting, the more he's saying it. And that's when you think, I don't know whether this is a genuine thought of yours or whether this genuinely is just social media making people feel like they have to go for people just to get that reaction, just to get that attention, just to be that talk about moment.
Just to feel alive.
Yeah. And it's so awful that that's now what that's become, that's what social media is now used for.
That guy, the Blues announced the tampon machine in the girls' toilets, and he basically said, "Oh, it's ridiculous. Oh, it's daft. Blah, woke snowflakes. Blah blah blah." To me, he is more of a problem than the people who write, "Get back in the kitchen, love." Because those that write, "Get back in the kitchen, love, make me a sandwich," I would like to think, I would hope that is trolling and people just being dicks, essentially. That guy who had a problem with a tampon machine being put in the toilets, that's a real problem. That's someone who, to me, he genuinely had a problem with that.
Yeah.
And that is a hard battle to win. Those that are sexist just go, "You're a sexist dick, bugger off." The guy who genuinely thinks that a tampon machine in the women's toilets is an issue, he is a hard man to win over.
I think the reaction from everybody else kind of got rid of that. Sort of, it was like amazing that so many people had got behind it and been like, "You're being so stupid. Like, well, this is an amazing thing." And I think I'd seen so many people who go with their daughters commenting, dads that take their daughters, because that was me. I used to go with my dad for years, and seeing them comment and saying how amazing that is, that they know that they can take their daughter and they're going to have those facilities. I think that completely outweighed one person's ridiculous comments.
Absolutely.
And I think that for me, that's how it felt. And I think for Emily as well. I think it was
really
absolutely. A special moment for a different reason.
Definitely. Well, talking of online trolls, we will skirt around this issue slightly. Astrid Wet. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not too sure. It could be Vet. It could actually, chances are it's probably a made up name. Astrid Wet. She put a video on of her recording an interview with someone outside a ground. I think it was Wembley, actually. A guy walks past and slaps her on the rear end. She put this up saying, "This is completely outrageous and disgusting." Having spoke to you two earlier, know you don't massively want to comment on that video in particular because police are involved and stuff. But what worries me and concerns me is the comments under that tweet of hers. Have you seen them, Emily?
I have. I did screenshots them earlier.
Did you?
Because I was prepared for the podcast today.
Doing your research like a pro.
Yeah, I am. You know what I'm like. Wait for my phone to load. So I think looking through, a lot of them at the top were football Twitter. So just stereotypical idiots sort of commenting, like, "DMs are open if you want to talk, Astrid." Whether that is, that could be someone being genuinely nice, but these days you always take things with a negative stance because of the way people are on social media. Someone put, "I don't respect anything you do, but yeah, that's unacceptable." And someone commented, "She isn't gonna sleep with you, mate." And I think the first comment, whether you agree with what she does or not, I think he's saying that he doesn't agree with what she does in her day-to-day life, but he's saying no matter what her job is, that's unacceptable. And then one person, I really, really thought this was a good one, but okay, let's turn it around. What if it was a woman that did that to a man? Would that be assault? Be cool and move on. And that's him saying that people wouldn't see it as an assault, but it is. I don't think it really matters.
No,
I would. I would see it as an assault.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I thought, do other people think they would? No, I don't think other people would think they do.
No.
That was an assault.
Yeah. I think people would think of it as a joke, but these days I'd be like, well, actually, no. You think of all the men that get touched up, or women that get touched up without consent. It's assault, no matter who it is.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Ashley Wett is a Chelsea fan and an OnlyFans model, I suppose you'd call them. She's got an OnlyFans site and she has shown some skin on the internet. For me, the most disgusting thing about it was the assumption that because she does what she does to fund her life, therefore you're fair game, I can touch you.
Yeah, that's just not acceptable.
No, I don't think anyone else, I don't know, but if the guy can do that, who knows what he can do it to. But I doubt anyone else got slapped on the backside. It was, you are a plaything to me, therefore I can do what I want. That was most disgusting to me. And the amount of comments, I don't know how many you saw, Helena, but the amount of comments saying, yeah, well, you're a this and you're a that and you deserve it, and when you do this, when you put your body out there, this is what you expect, what did you expect, blah, 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 blah. I can't believe how many people, women as well, were saying, essentially, you deserve this, Helena.
I don't know if I'm surprised, if I'm honest. I think they're just wrong. Whether they, like you say, whether they agree with what she does or not, that's a completely different aspect. That's a completely different discussion. That's nothing to do with the fact that she, she didn't give consent to that. She didn't say that was something that was acceptable. That person has taken it, that man has taken it upon himself to touch her. She doesn't, that's just not acceptable no matter what she does. She's still a human being. She's still a woman. She's still a person with rights.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't even be up for discussion. Obviously the other part discussed that, but that incident is not a talking point. It's not a discussion. It's wrong, really.
Absolutely. As I say, there were a fair few women saying that, so perhaps some women have I don't know. I mean, when you were younger, did you accept that sexism was part of the footballing world and you are guests in that world? Maybe some women still hold those views. I don't know.
We've had this discussion again about women, and sometimes I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I find them worse than men.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In what way?
And it not for obviously the same reasons, but just like. Just they kind of look at you and the comments that they make, and you think, but you're a woman, so you would just expect you to support everything that a woman does, whether they choose to like football or whatever they choose to do. Like some of the comments that I've had from girls, friends, acquaintances, family members, and that I think it shocks you. I think it's worse because it shocks you so much.
Like what? What sort of comments?
So I think I've got two things
Go on.
that I will talk about. So one thing was, obviously we had the Euros this summer. I went all out, like bucket hat, flag, face paint, the works. Loved it. And I remember I couldn't sit with my friends because I remember feeling so uncomfortable, thinking, oh, they're all sat there in their lovely dresses, they look beautiful, they're drinking their cocktails, I'm going to go and sit somewhere else. And one of the girls that I know just kind of came up and was like, what are you doing? Like, you're being really over the top. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, why are you dressed like that? Why are you screaming and shouting at the TV like that? And I'm thinking, there are about 200 other blokes in here with the same bucket hat as me, with the same face paint, doing exactly the same thing. Like, I don't understand then why you're pointing me being the one that's being over the top. Because obviously that's not. Why are you not telling
every other bloke in there?
Every other person that's doing exactly the same, probably worse than I am. But that's not an issue.
What's your
and then
one?
I had the other one. This one's quite funny. So I ran the line for my boyfriend's football team once in like a friendly, And I took a picture after. I just took a little picture with me with the flag, loving it. And I had some like family members comment underneath me like, "Oh, do you even know what you're doing? Do you think you're a cheerleader?" And
No
I was
way.
like, "Wow." And until I kind of laughed it off, and then when I got involved with Emily, I looked back on it and thought, that's really not okay.
Yeah.
And I remember pulling them up and then thinking, them saying, "Oh no, I didn't mean it like that." And it's like, but that's how it comes across, and that's how it makes people feel, and it's not acceptable. Like, it's just because maybe it's because of who I am, because I'm, like I've said before, I'm quite a girly girl. I know we've said like that doesn't matter, but I don't know whether it's because of that I then get responded like that from other women thinking, what are you doing? Like, you don't fit in with that, their ideal of what a girl like in football would be like.
Do you find the same?
I have, but I don't. I think it's more of a territorial thing.
Oh, okay.
So I think growing up, I was always one of the only girls that liked football. And when you go to a new place, or you meet more girls that are into football. I think a couple of years ago, probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was almost this culture within girls in football of, what are you doing here? Why do you weren't here? Why? Who are you? Why do you like football?
Do you think they think you're attention seeking?
I think a lot of people think that girls that like football are attention seeking, but I think everyone that with a hobby has to start somewhere. And I think if you are new to football and you're a woman, don't be ashamed to not know what you're on about, because everyone starts somewhere. Yeah. I think boys started a lot younger than us. A lot of them came out of the crib and they went straight to football games. They were taught growing up. They had football training every Saturday, played football in school. I didn't even have a team. I had to start my own one at school. And as women, we're almost late to the game because of the way society is, that it's ingrained in us that it's wrong for us, but actually it's probably quite right for us. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, is that of the whole, who are you? Why do you like football? I don't know you. You're not a football girl. Like, yeah, look at me. You don't think I like football, but actually when you get me talking, I definitely do.
Do you think there are some women that do use football as a method of attention seeking? That might be a controversial question.
It's a really hard question to answer.
That's why I asked it.
I think if you're looking at it from a positive standpoint, I want to be quite level-headed with this.
Go for it.
I think potentially to begin with, maybe, but only because they want to learn more. I think a lot of people sort of shout out about football because they want to be part of a community, because they want to make new friends, because they want to feel a part of something, because they love the togetherness football brings. And yeah, maybe they are attention seeking because they want to be part of that. And that's where I think it comes from. I think people, you see a lot of girls, and you see this on Twitter, and I hate it, and it makes me really angry, that girls tweet, "Where were you girls during the Euros?" Well, maybe, you know what, during the Euros they felt part of something. They felt part of a country coming together, and they don't maybe have a club or friends at a club that they can go along with. So now they have gone away because they've got no one to talk to.
So I think this is exactly what we spoke about when we had our meeting with the Blues, that there was so many girls that we knew, some of my best friends, who absolutely loved the Euros, loved it, got into it, asked so many questions and had like a genuine interest. And then the season begins, and like you say, they don't know where to go. They don't know, well, what team do I support? Well, my dad likes this team, my friends like this team. What do I do? And then it stops. And that's where you need to get, like, especially with the World Cup and things coming this year, there are so many people that just get involved in it because it's a whole country thing. Mm-hmm. So use that to encourage other girls to feel comfortable that, yes, England's great, but so are all these other 92 clubs in the country, and they're comfortable and they're accessible. Well, not as good as England. I did say that to the girls. I was like, don't expect the Blues to be anything on the level of excitement that England was.
Yeah.
But it's live football, and, everyone's got to start somewhere, and that's the Euros is a great place. Well, was a great place to start.
You've absolutely nailed that answer. The main reason I ask is it's interesting how when women first get into football, it's because they're attention seeking. But there's lots of men who aren't into football when they were younger and come into it later in life. Never accused of attention seeking, particularly in the Euros. I know people who do not care about football, but they will always watch the Euros and the World Cup, and they're never accused of attention seeking. They may get the odd comments of, yeah, you don't really go though, do you? You don't really care. But it's never attention seeking. There's a guy who I work with who's a Villa fan, and he's impossible to talk to about football because he hasn't got a clue. He says he's a Villa fan because he wants to be part of something, and there are other Villa fans at work, and he knows I'm a Blues fan, and that's what it is. He wants to be part of that conversation. It's not a problem. He hasn't got a bloody clue what he's talking about because, like, you can tell straight away. You know when you try and talk to someone about football and all they come back with is banter like, yeah, but you can't even sell your stadium out. Yeah, I know, mate. But what did you think of last week's game? Yeah, what did you think of your game? I bet you lost. No, I'm genuinely trying to talk to you about football, mate. And that's how you know this guy doesn't know. But no one accused him of attention seeking because we're all sat round the staff room talking about football, and this guy wants to join in, and he's allowed to. That door is open for him. Whereas, as you say, for women, it's more like, no, it's just because you fancy the men. That's all. You're just trying to get attention from it.
I'd do much more exciting things if I was going to get attention. I wouldn't sit and watch the Blues every week.
Okay. Say that again. Say that again. It's a weird double standard, and let's hope it changes soon. So where do we go with her game 2? You say you got some stuff lined up with the Blues. Is there anything on a more sort of national level for the campaign you can talk about?
I think I'm pushing for, and I'm trying to have conversations with the girls, and I think there's already some of this in the pipeline about creating education pieces for clubs, and us going into clubs, and grassroots as well. I think is really important on what is sexism, what classifies as sexism. This is something I'm really passionate about. I do a lot of research in my spare time. I've been looking at the Equality Act of 2010 and all the characteristics and the groups that need to be protected and things like that. So I think that's really important. We need an education piece as a campaign to almost back up our message, because then we're physically saying to people, look, this is what's right and wrong. It's black and white, and if you follow this, you'll be okay. I think it's also about, I think we should probably look at trying to get as many grassroots clubs involved. And I know that Helena is going to be a big part of this. I'll let her explain that in a second.
Go for it.
But I think it is really all about education and raising more awareness and getting more women involved and getting them. I know at Blues we've got a lot of plans to get younger girls, or girls in general, more involved in the game from local areas, from different backgrounds. We want to try and make the club a more inclusive place in general, and we're part of those talks. So I think that the future is positive. But yeah, Helena, I'll hand over to you.
I think there's kind of two things that you touched on there. The grassroots thing, so obviously my boyfriend plays for a Sunday League team, and a couple of them came along to the Her Game 2 1 year event, just kind of like, we were told we could invite some people. We still thought, we like that football will come along. And the reception that we've gotten from them has been incredible. Like, they are your bog standard Sunday League, typical blokes. Don't want to offend any of them. But the reception they have gotten to them, that they have given us to the movement, has just been amazing. Like, they have said how important they think it is, how amazing the event was, how much it's opened their eyes to things all around. And they've even kind of offered next season to put the badge, like the Her Game 2 logo, on their new kit.
Oh, awesome.
So it's such a small thing, but like to see just your average male kind of responding to it like that was huge. I think was just like, this really is such an important thing, and it's affecting everybody, and it's touching everybody all across gender, age, race, everything, which is great.
Definitely. Well, a mate of mine, he's in the process of setting up a series of girls teams for Old Wolves, and again, he wasn't really involved until I started doing this and talking to him about it. And he came to the birthday party and he was talking to the Her Game 2 Wolves rep, and they're in the process of setting up I think it's like 4 or 5 teams for different girls' age groups, which is especially important to mention on here because I'm guessing there will be some Birmingham fans watching this, and Old Wolves isn't a million miles away from Birmingham. If there's any girls interested, they're on Twitter. You can find them, search for Old Wolves and sign up. But I've said it on every episode, and I will say it till I'm blue in the face. The grassroots stuff is brilliant. The sexism stuff needs to end. We all know that. But people have this misconception that it's a viral video and nothing else. They don't see what goes on aside from that. They don't see the talks in the schools. They don't see the grassroots football. They don't see the money raised from the merch and the raffle at that birthday, for example, going towards grassroots football. It's fantastic. There's so... If I've got one criticism of you girls, it's that you don't promote that side enough because you don't brag about it enough. I know that you get reports from the ground of sexism and they get dealt with. I know they get dealt with because I've spoke to the people who deal with them, but you don't brag about it. Kaz's answer to that was, why should we? And she's right, it's no one else's business but yours. But there is so much good that this campaign is doing, aside from just, here's a video of 12 girls holding a sign up that people will throw back in your faces. And I kind of wish you'd talk about it more, and that's why I bleat on about it every single flipping episode of this thing, and I'll continue to do so. So people can just skip through this bit if they're sick of hearing me say it for the 4th time in a row. But there you go. Right, I think we've come to the end of our time. We're pretty much at an hour now. It's been an absolute pleasure, girls. Have we covered everything you two wanted to cover? Is there anything more you'd like to go into?
I think the last thing that I'd like to say is,
go for it.
When Emily was talking about the education side of it, I mentioned this, obviously because I'm a teacher in a primary school, I mentioned this to my head teacher just in passing about I was doing her game too, and he was so on board with it, and he was like, as soon as they have an education programme set up, get in contact with Blues community, pass on our details because they really want to be involved. And I think that's like and I can imagine every school would be like that because there isn't that in school for girls.
Yeah,
there
definitely.
isn't that access for them, and I think kind of getting from what they say, and they've mentioned it again today, like next year that's something we really want to push. So I think that's like a huge avenue for her game to obviously explore, and would be amazing for all those girls to know that it's okay from that very young age that they should also have that opportunity just like the boys do as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's a real enthusiasm. It seems like those that actually take time to invest in this project get really enthused by it and really take it on a full charge sort of thing. And like I say, it's so much more than just a viral video and a logo. It is a cool logo and it is a cool video, but it's so much more than that. So much more. Girls, it's been an absolute pleasure. Banksy, the Drake, love spending time with you. Love you both to bits. Thank you very, very much for spending this hour with me. And that's it for the Her Game 2 podcast, episode 4, I think now. We're slowly kicking on. Next week, or next time even, I've got Charlotte and Kirsty, I believe, Tottenham fan, and she's going to kill me for forgetting this. Who does Charlotte support?
Rochdale,
of course it is. She's got a podcast the day away. I apologise for that, Charlotte. Yes, they're coming on. They do the Her Game 2 spaces. And they'll be next. But yeah, thank you very much for watching and listening. Thank you very much, girls, for joining me. We will see you next time. Ta-ra.